Welcome to the Investing Podcast, presented by Tusk Media. Now, for your early morning look at financial news and activity in audio and video form, here's the Morning Market Mimosa.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Investing Podcast. It is Thursday, August 11th, 2016. This is your Morning Market Mimosa, or maybe we should call it the Morning Market Ben Mosa, because from now on, for Season 2 at least, Mr. Ben Nye is going to join us every morning when available. You know, sometimes he's actually got to work, but when he doesn't have to work, we're going to get him in here. Ben, how's it going, man?
It's going great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're pumped to have you. We've been trying to unroll some of this stuff. We let the unit, Mr. Matt Krosbach, come on the last couple afternoons. We're going to get Sam Frost in here at lunchtime, but we're going to get you in the morning. We're both usually here. You're always in the market and usually ready to go, so let's go ahead and jump in. Futures. Talk about that just a little bit. We'll throw you some numbers and then we'll get into some topics. But Dow futures up 25 basis points, S&P futures up 20, NASDAQ up 24. Gold down just a little bit, down about 13 basis points. Oil down a little more than 0.5% to 41.84 per barrel. We'll talk a little bit more about oil, but in the meantime, let's jump in on some topics. Wake and bake. Our listeners love when we talk about drugs, especially before 9 a.m., so we'll go ahead and jump in. DEA is expected to release a decision today as to how marijuana will be scheduled. Now, if you know anything about drugs, and most of our listeners and viewers probably know a lot about drugs, that's why they're here. Schedule I drugs, which is what marijuana is currently classified on as, are considered to be highly addictive, highly subjected to abuse, and to provide very little medical value. So right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug. There's a couple options here that the DEA has, and they've been doing a lot of research, a lot of studies, spending a couple years on this actually, and the announcement's going to come today. They could do nothing. They could leave it as a Schedule I drug. Now, if they do that, the impact is going to be such that it's going to continue to be a little bit of an uphill climb for states who want to legalize marijuana. And as we've seen all kinds of headlines on, we've actually seen that marijuana is very much a booming business. It's very much a booming business in the states that have made that step. So that's why it does have a tie into investing. So if they leave it there, the barrier to entry is going to still be somewhat challenging on a state level. They could lower its schedule and basically say, okay, maybe it's not quite as addictive, maybe it's not quite as likely to be as abused as we once thought, or maybe there are some medical benefits that we're ready to recognize. The other thing they could do is they could actually completely deschedule it. Now, if you had something get completely descheduled, I do think you could see some actual marijuana-based investing plays really, really take off pretty quickly. Now, we don't own any stocks in any marijuana-based plays, but something to keep an eye on. It could be interesting to see because those stocks really trade on headlines. If you remember back to even 4 years ago when Colorado legalized, I don't know if you followed this company, but there was a company called MedBox that sounds just like it is. It was basically a marijuana dispensary with a red box format. So you would show up and you'd pay your money, it would scan your license, it would know how much you could get, and you'd get marijuana out of there. That stock, it was basically a penny stock before the election. Colorado legalized, a couple other states made steps to legalize, and that stock just went absolutely through the roof just on headlines. So that's something to keep an eye on today.
Well, and just to that point, I came from Oregon, as we know, and they recently legalized marijuana, and you go to the startup conventions there, and probably 20% or at least 20% of the startups there are doing something in the marijuana business. It is a crowded space. So if you're thinking about investing, you might want to be an arms merchant to these guys, and maybe not the actual dispensary themselves.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily going to be a space where everyone's a winner.
Right.
Especially not if you know marijuana abusers. Let's talk about Allergen, talk about them a little bit. Headline today that they're buying a company called Foresight Visions. They make a medication for glaucoma. What's interesting to me, and I'd love your insights on this, for those listening or watching, Ben is our kind of our lead equity analyst. He's our senior equity analyst. He has great perspectives on stocks, on the market in general. So I'd welcome your input, because what seems odd about this acquisition is a couple things. Number one, you have Allergan or Allergen, depending on who you ask, phonetically, buying a company that's significantly small. You kind of wonder, how is this even going to make a dent for a company so large? Allergen's market cap about $100 billion. They're acquiring something for $95 million with an M. So a very, very small acquisition. The other thing is the company that they're acquiring has gone through a ton of the hoops and all that good stuff to get this drug approved and ready for approval, the main drug that they have there. So it seems like a relatively low cost acquisition. So what's the play here?
Yeah, I think it's kind of more the same. Allergan, this is going right to the heart of their strategy. They're excellent marketers, they're excellent salesmen, they're excellent at getting people to pay more for something. And I think that Foresight understands that, and they think Allergan's going to give us a way better deal because they have these resources and they've done this before. So they, from Foresight's perspective, the attractiveness is obvious. For Allergan, it'll be interesting to see how they account for it. Are they is it going to be able to boost revenue without really hitting too much of the capital expense line? Like maybe that's already built into their capital budget. So it's just kind of another boost. If they're running low on EPS, maybe it can get them over the edge. But then also it does tie in well with their existing business, and they have been done very well at raising prices on drugs. It's similar to Valiant.
Exactly, which is a great segue. So let's talk a little bit about Valiant and kind of the criminal probe that's going on. What are your thoughts? Tell people what's going on, all that good stuff.
Valiant. So backstory on Valiant is that they acquired billions and billions and billions dollars worth of company. They have a lot of debt on their balance sheet, which looked fine when they were generating lots of EBITDA because they said, we're going to get that debt to EBITDA ratio down, and people aren't really examining the balance sheet that much. But the problem is when that EBITDA is thrown into question, then all of a sudden they have debt problems. And they were using this Philidor entity as a way to distribute these drugs. And now the insurance companies are upset because they think that this relationship made the insurance companies pay more for the drugs than they should have. And, it's just one thing after another with these guys. And with that debt load, it's tough to take all these hits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's kind of a story that's been dragging on. It seems like we've been talking about Valiant for, better part of a year.
Right.
With kind of these same types of headlines and these criminal probes, these ethics violations, or at least ethical concerns. The debt remains there, like a huge cloud just hanging over them. Yeah, it's a sticky situation. Definitely a company to kind of keep an eye on. We don't own any. I don't know that we're real interested in owning any at this juncture.
Probably interesting to look at what Mallinckrodt does today as well. A lot of people think that I know businesses are relatively similar. You have Andrew Lochte of Citron. He says that Mallinckrodt is even a better short than Valiant. So take that for what you will. But those stocks sometimes move together.
So switching gears a little bit, another topic that we've talked quite a bit about lately is oil. Before we started the podcast, not that long ago, we actually saw oil trading down below 30. We saw a nice rally kind of in the early days of the investing podcast when it hit all the way up to $50 a barrel. We've since seen it fall all the way back down into the $39 range. Lately, the last couple days, it seems pretty content to move quite volatilely, with a lot of volatility, quite volatile-like, if you will, between kind of that $40 to $43 range, kind of moving a lot. And the headlines don't really give us many answers. Talk a little bit about what you were reading this morning and what you were seeing.
It was sometimes it's entertaining if you go on the Wall Street Journal's website to look at what the URL says and then read the headline of the title, because often those things will be different. A lot of times that happens like after Fed meetings.
Yeah.
So today I was reading this Wall Street Journal article, write-up of what the IEA has to say about energy and oil prices, and I'll just read you what the URL said. It said, IEA sees oil demand easing as the economic outlook dims, implying, there might be some more downside to oil. The title of the article read, IEA, world oil glut has disappeared, implying upside to oil.
Yes.
So, they've got it both ways right there.
I'd like to think that the guy, I don't know if I hope they use WordPress, because that's the only type of website editing tool I'm remotely familiar with. But right when you start, you type in a title, and it formulates a URL after that. I'd like to think that he literally started writing and then changed his mind.
I think you're spot on.
I think that might be the type of case for oil, and that's probably a big reason why we're seeing so much volatility. It's one of those topics that's interesting to me, how many experts there are.
Right.
Meanwhile, none of them have any kind of consistent track record. It's difficult. I mean, we do feel like oil is a space where there's potentially an outsized reward somewhere relative to the risk, but figuring that out, and when to move and when to act and how to act it's almost more frustrating knowing that there probably is that opportunity, but not quite knowing how to play it yet.
Right. I mean, well, your namesake, Andy Hall.
That's right.
Of Aston Bet Capital.
Yeah.
He's been calling the bottom for oil for about almost a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a profit of oil, he's the one. So it's interesting.
Never trust him.
Supply demand.
Never trust a man named Andrew Hall. That's what they say. Retailers, you want to talk a little bit about some of those stocks that you've been caught your eye lately?
So both Macy's and Kohl's reported today. A little bit different stories in each of them. Kohl's actually brought down its guidance for the year. Macy's reiterated its guidance. Last I checked, Macy's was up about 10%, a little over. And the reason is expectations were just so low on these guys. Everyone thought that the second quarter was just a disaster. Macy's actually saying that the second quarter saw improving trends month over month, and that that gives them better confidence into the end of the year. Kohl's, not such a great story. They actually missed slightly on comp sales. But the big thing for Kohl's, the big albatross on them has been the extra inventory that they've been carrying. And their gross margins were pretty solid, suggesting they're not seeing as big of an inventory hit as maybe people thought.
Mm-hmm.
And also their inventory came down.
Right.
So a couple decent things for Kohl's there, and they're up quite a bit too in the early market.
So we couldn't have you on here without talking about the most important topic in the world of investing, and that's the Olympics. Got to talk about the Olympics. And something's been weighing on you in terms of the host country and one of their national teams.
Boy, when you talk about Brazil, you're talking about soccer.
You have to.
And, sometimes they don't win, but they're scoring goals, right? They're playing that samba football, and everyone's dancing in the stands.
And it's fun.
It's fun. It's fun to watch. Those yellow jerseys signal the best in cycling, signal the best in soccer. 0-0 against Iraq.
That was bad. I watched quite a bit of that. And it was odd listening to the commentators because I don't watch a whole lot of soccer. I get pretty into it. I get really into the Olympics, as you can tell by this. I get really into the World Cup. So I'm kind of what's the big cultural phenomenon of soccer? And there's a lot of them. So you can kind of get behind it periodically. So that's kind of my take. So I don't pretend to be an expert, but what was funny was in the early moments, commentators just talking about Brazil's speed and their ability to attack and how, it was so great that a team like Iraq was here, they were in this moment. And the whole time I was watching for the first 20 to 30 minutes saying, why isn't Brazil attacking? And then it was one of those things, and I see this a lot in soccer, where it's like the last 3 minutes all of a sudden of the period, all of a sudden they turn it on, they want to go. Then they go into the half, they come back out later, and it was the same thing again. And it was, I don't know if they just have too much confidence, or if they're legit and therefore aren't playing the way they should, or if they're legitimately off.
Yeah, and you have most of the players in the Olympic tournament are under 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But Brazil, you're able to bring in 3 senior players, and they brought in some of their best players. They brought in Neymar, and he's one of the best in the world. And they can't do anything with him. So it's bizarre.
It's very bizarre. We will do a quick medal update. Some good swimming going on today. We've got the Phelps Lochte final and the 200 IM, I think.
Yeah.
That was fun to watch them in the semifinals. I mean, those guys they're crazy elite.
Nuts.
We talked about it yesterday. I mean, you can't make an argument against Phelps being the greatest Olympian of all time. But what I didn't realize was Lochte has won the second most medals. Now, I only count golds, but in terms of how other people view it, the rest of the world, total medals, he's won 13, which is the most of any swimmer other than Michael Phelps in his career. And it kind of sucks to be Ryan Lochte. Like, what are the odds you just happen to align with that guy? But I really liked their interview yesterday because both of them, they seem like the perfect balance to me of friendly but competitive. They'll talk to each other. They're not best friends, but their interview, they had them both right after their semifinal where they were 1-2. And I love both of them said the exact same thing. Like, this guy pushes me like nobody else. I wouldn't be the same swimmer without this guy. So it's kind of fun to see that, just both of them saying that. And Phelps actually said it first, which was interesting, kind of the duo there. So it's fun to watch them. We'll definitely keep an eye on that. Medal update, USA, 11 gold medals, China 10, Japan 6, Australia 5, Hungary 5, USA holding on to that lead over China. The total medal count, this is what it is. You don't win silver medal, you lose gold. You don't win a bronze medal, you lose a gold medal. So these are the medals won, USA with 11. We'll keep you guys up to date on that. We might maybe do an end of the day update, maybe even a lunchtime. And we'll be back at lunch, myself and Sam Frost. We'll talk. Big announcement this afternoon, 4:15 or 4:20. You need to either go to Twitter or Facebook, whichever one you do, twitter.com or facebook.com. Do a / Tusk Media LLC. We're going to be going live on both Periscope and Facebook Live. So next level, never done that before. So check it out. If you're on either of those things, another like shameless plug here, if you watch us, please share it. It's really easy. There's a share button. You can share it with everybody that follows you on Twitter. You can share it with everybody that follows you on Facebook. We're trying to grow this thing, have a little more fun with it. We'd greatly appreciate it. Ben, thanks for being here. We'll have you back on this morning. Maybe we'll work you in this afternoon. Who knows?
Sounds good.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
Tusk Media is a subsidiary of Narwhal Capital Management. Ratings and reviews of Tusk Media content are not to be construed as endorsements of opinions, analysis, or services offered by Tusk or its parent company. The opinions and predictions shared here are our professional beliefs at the time of publication. We are not under duress from any of the corporate entities mentioned. This is not a solicitation to take any particular action. Although we are investment advisors, this information should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. We strive to be as impartial, insightful, and accurate as possible. We base our opinions, analysis, and calculations on information we believe to be reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy. We can, however, guarantee that our opinions will sometimes be flat out wrong due to a variety of factors. Employees and clients of Narwhal Capital Management may or may not hold positions in the securities detailed and may or may not hold these positions in the future. A full list of all securities purchased, sold, or held during the 12 months preceding the date of this publication can be provided upon request. Unless otherwise noted, all data accessed via MarketWatch or the Bloomberg terminal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. A copy of Narwhal's Form ADV is available at the SEC's website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov, or from Narwhal upon written request.